This was the week where the Senate Judiciary Committee held a confirmation hearing for Judge Amy Coney Barrett after watching her refuse to acknowledge climate change or what her position on reproductive rights is, and refuse to call suspending an election or intimidating voters illegal, I'm going to be honest and say, bring back the rapey drunk. Like, Brett Kavanaugh's hearing was somehow less triggering than this. I don't know how it's possible. I want it back. Let's hear more about Squee. That dude sounded chill compared to what's going on now. Speaking of triggering, this was also the week where, after the hearing was finished, Dianne Feinstein called it the, quote, best hearing she had participated in, and then not just shook the maskless, test-refusing Lindsey Graham's hand, but then leaned in for a hug. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to miss her. I won't. Like, I don't, the DNC is going to be asking for my signature on like a Get Well Dianne card in a little bit, and I will not sign it. Just no. Not only did she call the hearing of a far-right ideologue that's happened less than a month before a presidential election the best hearing, she broke CDC COVID guidelines to hug Lindsey Graham. You guys, that's like breaking fast to eat shit. Like, you know who else she didn't hug? The adorable kids who came to beg her to sign on to the Green New Deal way before there was a pandemic. She didn't hug them, which means Dianne Feinstein only hugs infectious babies.
But
it's a rule.
I mean, I'm not sure that I would think of hugging Dianne Feinstein as like a good thing. Do you know what I mean? Would you really? She's not good at hugging. There's no warmth or love or.
It was a very side.
Yeah. It wasn't tenderness. They didn't relax into each other's bodies and feel the softening. Look, people are hating on Dianne Feinstein for not putting up much of a fight around the Barrett confirmation hearings, but us #resistance gas queen liberals like me know that she's really playing 11-dimensional political chess jujitsu, and the Democrats are only pretending to be craven cowards, more concerned with civility than justice, just in order to lull the Republicans to sleep so that they can immediately pack the courts on January 21. Just kidding. What was I thinking?
We can all dream.
Yeah. Feinstein's a centrist millionaire whose political career began with the murder of Harvey Milk and will similarly end in bloodshed as well during the great Antifa Proud Boy Civil War of 2021.
God. Honestly, I think a lot of people say that Feinstein and other establishment Dems are just Republicans. I would agree, but not because of their politics. I think it's because they're so old, they forget which party they're in. They're just like, I am a Demican. You're like, what? I am a proud Demican. The Demican party, when's lunch? They're so decrepit. Like, at what point? And honestly, that's like, I'm saying that facetiously, but when you've been in power for that long, it must feel like you're just, we're part of the ruling elite. What? We're supposed to be different. All right, I'm going to move on to the second story. This was the week where Joe Biden and Donald Trump had competing town halls, and you had to pick one of them to watch, like the scene in Hook where like Rufio and Peter draw the line in the sand, except the Lost Boys do grow up and they all have dentures. Biden's town hall won the ratings game, and he was...
Were they on at the same time?
Yeah, on at the exact same time.
So you had to pick one?
Supposedly.
Yeah.
Can I just say that growing up, I had such a crush on Rufio?
So cute, right?
Yeah. Well, he was the first punk rock looking guy in the mainstream media, so I felt represented. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, there were dueling town halls, and it's a little bit of, there's been a lot of criticism of NBC over this, obviously, but also one of the biggest ones is, why would you run it at the same time? There's no real reason unless you're straight up trying to pick off ratings from ABC. That's neither here nor there. The Biden town hall actually did win the ratings game, and I felt like Biden was incredibly cogent. I've said he's been really bad on this show. I thought he was good this time around. He stuck the landing on several points. He repeated his stance on police reform, about how cops should shoot suspects in the leg instead of shooting to kill. And yes, that seems like a really bad answer to the question of police reform, but that answer does make sense because it's coming from a guy whose presidency would be a shot in the leg instead of a fatal shot to the heart. So
it's harm reduction.
I'm gonna take that shot in the leg. You know, I'm voting for Biden. Take that shot in the leg.
It's a great slogan. So Trump was I watched the part of the Trump debate where he was asked about QAnon. Yes. And the interviewer says, what's your position on QAnon? And he said, excuse me, what? And she said, you know, the false baseless conspiracy theory that the Democrats are involved in a satanic pedophilia ring. And he said, I don't know anything about QAnon except that they're against pedophilia, and I agree. Now, here's the thing about that. Trump lies constantly, can't stop lying. Lying is his favorite thing. And the statement about QAnon was lies start to finish, because normally you might say that being against pedophilia is not a controversial position to take as a politician. Like, what politician is not against pedophilia? Donald Trump, as it happens, who has clearly filled out his preferred customer punch card on the Jeffrey Epstein pedophilia island. So when Donald Trump says, I don't know about QAnon except that they're against pedophilia, which I agree with, what the entire sentence is lies, because obviously he does know about QAnon and he's not against pedophilia. So there's A+ lying there.
Yeah.
He also, oh yeah, you first.
No, go ahead.
No, just, I mean, I sat out of both of them, but I love, I mean, the fact that Trump got lower ratings was actually the most satisfying part of my week, because before they happened, he was bragging that he was getting free airtime. And it was clear that the only reason that he chose to do it simultaneously was to be able to brag about his ratings. Right. And so getting to see his ego taken down a peg when that was his entire, there's no other reason to do them simultaneously other than to say, like, people like me, they don't actually like Joe Biden, you know, like that's their main argument, is like his rallies are small, mine's so much bigger, and when his isn't so much bigger, it's highly satisfying.
Absolutely. And that was probably a stipulation for NBC, like, I will do this with you, this thing that you absolutely don't need to do, NBC, and I will do it, but it has to be at the same time. Mm-hmm. You know, that was part of it. And yeah, it fucking backfired in his face. On the QAnon stuff, it's true, though, Nato, they do fight pedophilia. Okay. It's the pedophilia that only exists in their minds. And that is really where the battle begins. You know, if it's there, it's like, I'm fighting space aliens. You know,
apparently there's all of these groups that actually do work on child sex trafficking. And they're like, this QAnon thing is the worst thing that has ever happened to us, because we're being inundated with false claims, and it is totally taking up all of it. Like, it's actually really, really hurting the work that we do.
Yeah, like, is anyone from QAnon like raising money for those anti-sex trafficking organizations? I don't think so. Right. Here's the thing about conspiracy theorists. They always avoid the conspiracy right in front of their faces. They like Epstein, right? Known child sex trafficker and pedophile. You know, conspiracy theorists, you're like, you know, well, hey, look, dark money is actually running much of Washington. And they're like, yeah, and the lizards. You're like, no, conspiracy theorists are people who want to sound interesting, but who are too stupid to put in the work of reading. So they're like, oh, well, I have to sound interesting, so I'm just going to, you know, someone's going to tell me what to think.
You don't think QAnon is having thoughtful screenings of the movie Spotlight about the cover up by the Catholic Church of child molestation? They're just doing double features of Spotlight and the two popes, and then having lengthy debates about morality and individual responsibility in the face of pedophilia.
That is such a good sketch, dude. We need to do that. We should absolutely do. We need to pose as QAnon followers and just actually have an honest conversation about child sex trafficking and exploitation. And they'll be like, no. Where's the pizza? We're like, oh no, they'll beat pizza.